It just got very real between the Islanders and Maxim Tsyplakov as we are now a month into this offseason and there still is no contract extension between the Islanders and this player, which likely means the next step is arbitration. On this episode of Islanders Digest, we're going to discuss what that means and why it's in the Islanders' best interest to avoid salary arbitration. Also talk about what I think is in store for the future of Maxim Tsyplakov because I think it's a player with a lot more potential than fans give him credit for, especially after last season. At least talking in the comments with you guys, I've noticed that a lot of you are pretty low on Tsyplakov, and some of you even don't really want him in the lineup, and I definitely think this is a mistake. I think he's a player who can really surprise us next season, which is why, ideally, I'd like the Islanders to get a few years on his next contract at a good rate. Now, really quickly, before we get into the salary arbitration things, we noticed that you're now just 10 subscribers away from 1,600. So if you're an Islander fan, you have not already subscribed to this channel. What are you waiting for? We put out Islanders content every single day, or almost every single day, sometimes more than one a day if there is a lot going on. Obviously now is the off season, so that is not the case, but be sure to subscribe. And if you already have, appreciate all your support as we continue to make Islanders content. Now let's talk about salary arbitration. And right now, there are pretty much two players for the Islanders who are not currently signed to contracts. And that is Maxim Tsyplakov, and then if you want to count Mathew Schaefer, because obviously Mathew Schaefer has a signed contract. I actually think since he's 17, he's unable to sign his contract yet. And this article by NYI Hockey Now is really talking about Tsyplakov and Schaefer's contract situations. It's all about the question with Schaefer is likely bonuses. I actually disagree. I think there's no doubt the Islanders are going to give Schaefer grade A bonuses, especially considering that they already gave them to Shabanov. I don't think they're going to be very strict with these, especially considering this is a player who was drafted first overall. And these bonuses, honestly, a lot of times, even though they have the potential to make $3.5 million, the awards they have to win and the seasons they have to have are so difficult to get these bonuses. The player normally doesn't even get half that bonus anyway. And I think for the Islanders and Schaefer, there's really no disagreement. I think the whole thing with Schaefer is actually whether or not he's going to go to college, which is a bigger story, which is why if he does end up signing his ELC, that's going to be a very big deal. But the focus here is Tsyplakov, who is now 26, had his rookie season with the Islanders last season. That's something you have to keep in mind considering he was playing the KHL. Last season was his rookie season with the Islanders, and now he needs a new contract, and the Islanders and Tsyplakov have not been able to agree, and the date is now important. As of today, the arbitration window has opened, meaning that each day there are different player meetings scheduled with arbitrators leading up to August 4th. By August 4th, all this will be settled, and I really hope in Tsyplakov's case this is not a situation that is settled by an arbitrator. Now, it is important to note with Tsyplakov, he just had his first child, which is really exciting. Congratulations to Tsyplakov. So there is some potential that perhaps Islanders and Tsyplakov are closer to working something out. And just because, his child was just born, he is focused on obviously being with his family. But I really don't think the Islanders and Tsyplakov are quite there yet. And as a result, unless they're able to hammer something out quickly, which I do think still will be the case, although at this point it's getting a little murky, I do think if they can't get, obviously it's not I think, if they can't get something done soon, then this is going to go to arbitration. And why this is a big concern is arbitration can get really ugly. Basically what arbitration is the team meets with a third party and they pitch their case on why Tsyplakov is not worth that much money, and then Tsyplakov and his agent pitch why they are worth a bunch of money, and then the arbitrator decides how much money the player is worth. And in the past, while sometimes this can be civil, it can get pretty ugly between the player wanting more money and then their own team, the team they play for, every night saying, no, you're not worth that money. With Tsyplakov, this is a really interesting case because he ended last season playing on the fourth line. And I think a lot of fans remember that thinking Tsyplakov is simply a fourth liner. You have to keep in mind, this is a player who in his first NHL season put up 35 points. In fact, if you remember the first half of the season when he was playing on the second line, he was actually in conversations with players like Mathew Barzal as in the conversation for the Calder. Of course, Lane Hudson eventually won that. Celebrini had a huge second half of the year as well. But in the first half, Tsyplakov was scoring at a pretty consistent rate, playing with Brock Nelson and Palmieri. And he kind of lost that role due to more disciplinary reasons. He was being very sloppy with the puck, things that tend to happen sometimes when you bring in a player from the KHL. Also, he tended to take unnecessary penalties, and Patrick Roy seems to be punishing him for that in the end of the season. And notably, what really impressed me with Tsyplakov is when the Islanders put him on the fourth line, he didn't sulk, he didn't cause a scene. In fact, he actually showed that he can be an effective fourth line player, which is why with Tsyplakov, I have no concerns on the Islanders giving him a longer term contract if the price is right. I honestly think the worst case scenario out of this arbitration is Tsyplakov gets 1 year, because I think he's going to have a really strong season for the Islanders, especially looking at the depth chart of this team. Also, really quickly, I did want to point out these are Maxim Tsyplakov's numbers from the KHL. So as strong as Tsyplakov performed, Shabanov did have almost twice the points that Tsyplakov had in his last season in the KHL, and he is younger. So as excited as I was about Tsyplakov, I am even more excited about Shabanov. Let's really talk about the depth chart and why I think the Islanders do need to sign Tsyplakov for more than one season, which for arbitration, it is only going to be a 1 year contract. This is Tsyplakov's last UFA year. That's the only option. They cannot award any of his his RFA year. Since they can't award any of his RFA years, if this is arbitration, then he's going to be a free agent next season. And I don't want that to happen, because I think this is a player who's going to have a long career in the NHL. And the fact that he showed that he can play down the lineup, while I think he was honestly too good to play on the fourth line. In fact, the fourth line actually scored a lot more when Tsyplakov was down there. I think this is a player who, given a second chance, can really perform well in the top six for the New York Islanders. One thing that was really interesting about his first year in the NHL is Tsyplakov didn't score a lot. And why that stands out is if you look at his seasons in the KHL, this is a player who scored a lot of goals and did not get many assists. So the fact that this year in the Islanders, he was able to show an element of playmaking and really didn't score as much as we expected with his shot and also his net front presence. A large part that shows me that he was not in the right position for the Islanders, and there's a lot more potential for this player. And considering that the number being thrown around is similar to one of Holmstrom, where it's $3 million, I would really like the Islanders to get 3 years or more on this contract, where if Tsyplakov does turn into the 2025 goal scorer, which I honestly think there's little doubt that he is going to become. I know he's 26. You can't expect him to develop more as a player in terms of getting stronger, getting bigger. He's already a really big, strong guy. And I honestly think his shot, he just was not on the right position in the lines he played. Honestly, switching him with Anders Lee in this lineup looks like it could work wonders. If he's playing with a player like Mathew Barzal, who's going to primarily take control of the puck and then dish it off to him, I think that could be a really good combination. And I honestly think Tsyplakov has a potential similar trajectory in his career to an Anders Lee, where this is a player who's really strong in front of the net. In fact, early on, we saw him play Lee's spot on the power play. It's a player who can play the bumper, and because of that, I think there's so much potential. The Islanders, I think you're risking losing him for nothing if you try to nickel and dime here and end up going to arbitration. I really think, especially considering he just welcomed a child, Tsyplakov is looking for more security. He wants to stay with the Islanders for a few seasons here. And at a number at $3 million, I think it makes all the sense in the world for the Islanders to try to push for 3 or even 4 years. Really, because again, even if he plays at the rate that he played this season, where he's just his ceiling is a fourth liner and he puts up 30 points, which I don't think it is. But if his ceiling is 30 points. Considering his physicality, also, I think he's still a valuable player, and although that's a little too much to pay for a fourth liner, considering the situation where the Islanders are in, I don't think that is the biggest issue. And the upside with Tsyplakov, on the other hand, I think is still very high, and I think not as high. I think it's higher than people think it is. I truly think this Tsyplakov is going to be in contention with players like Duclair and Drouin to play in the top 6 for this Islanders team. And while that is Lee's spot right now, I think it makes sense for the Islanders to move Lee down the lineup and give Tsyplakov a chance to shine with a player like Matt Barzal, especially considering, and I know this is just the Puckopedia, this is not going to be the final lineup for the Islanders, especially considering that Lee is a player who's really struggled to play with Barzal, and due to injuries, we really never got a chance to watch Tsyplakov and Barzal play. Let me know what you think about this in the comments below. What do you think Tsyplakov's ceiling is, and how much would you want to see the Islanders pay him, and for how long? I really think that 3 times 3 works for both sides. The Islanders would get 3 years of this player at a very affordable rate, and with Tsyplakov, there's a lot of security in that. It's job security for the next 3 years, getting a lot of money. While it's not as big as he likely can earn in the future, knowing you're getting that $9 million over 3 years, and then being able to test free agency if you have a good 3 seasons, I think that is the best fit. But let me know what you think in the comments below. As always, if you have not already, be sure to subscribe to the channel. My name is Patrick Nilan. Catch you on the next episode of Islanders Digest. Let's go, Islanders.